It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Welcome to County-Wide. I'm Paul David. Good to have you in the studio today. With us today is former District 1 State Representative and Chairman of the Verde River Basin Partnership, Tom O'Halloran.
Good morning, Paul.
It has been a while since we've had you in.
It has been, and I've missed it.
Several years,
yeah,
actually.
Definitely.
And the Verde River Basin Partnership, for me, has kind of dropped off the map a little bit. I apologize for that. We do talk about the meetings and stuff that you have come up, and you've got a guest speaker, I guess, coming up this next
coming
week.
Monday at the Yavapai College campus in Sedona. One of the experts in climate throughout the entire western United States, and particularly the southwestern United States, serves on the governor's task force for drought management in the state of Arizona, Dr. Michael Crimmins from the University of Arizona. And he's a tremendous presenter. So that's at 2 o'clock on this coming Monday, the 18th, at the Yavapai College campus in Sedona.
And that's your monthly meeting for the Verde River Basin Partnership.
That is our quarterly meeting. We have the coordinating committee meets every month, and then every quarter we have a meeting of all the members. We have about 35 organizations that are members of the partnership. People like all the cities and towns in the Verde, SRP, Department of Water Resources, about 5 different government agencies, and then we have hundreds of people that follow us as individual members.
Now, when did this partnership begin? 'Cause I thought we would go back a little bit and do a little history on the partnership, just to remind everybody who it is and what it's about. I think everybody, I'm kind of complacent. It's about the Verde River. It's just about the Verde River, but it's more than that. But go ahead and give us kind of a background on the partnership.
Well, nothing's ever just about the river.
Exactly. That's the mindset we've got to try to change.
And it started out as part of the federal bill that dealt with the Ruskin land trade, the Northern Arizona Land Trade Act, and that bill was in 2005, and a bunch of us worked on that along with Senator McCain and Senators Kyle. And when there was such an outpouring of concern of that much land being traded, going from public hands to private hands in the Verde here, particularly the 8 square miles by I-17 in Camp Verde, and somebody said, where's the water coming from? And nobody could answer that. Okay, we're taking all this land and putting it out of public hands and into production. And then we already have enough land to have 170, 180,000 citizens in the Verde anyway. We have 75 about today. How are we going to supply water now to the 170-some thousand plus all the other new people that are going to deal with the 8 square miles? And then what about when we eventually develop potentially the 10 square miles just outside of Cottonwood here of state trust land? How does all this come together? And in order to get that bill through, what the senators did was say, okay, let's start the Verde River Basin Partnership. And they will come up with a scientific plan in order to identify what we need scientifically and research-wise to understand our resource, not only here in the Verde, but throughout the Verde River Basin, which is about 5,000 plus square miles, starting in the Prescott Tri-City area, going up north to Seligman, and then all the way down as a free-flowing river, the Verde River, to Horseshoe Dam, and then the river actually ends up just north of Mesa, Arizona.
It travels along 190 miles, I think, is what it is.
Right, and it's the important feature of it is it's one of the last free-flowing rivers in the southwestern, not only Arizona but the Southwest. It flows 137 miles down to Horseshoe Dam as a free-flowing river, and it's an important valued asset and should be recognized as that throughout our area. But getting back to the partnership, I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but the partnership came up with the science plan and went to the federal government, and they had authorized expenditures up to $6 million for work to be done, and that never materialized. They never appropriated.
The $6 million or the work?
The $6 million.
Okay.
They never appropriated it. So the partnership then changed direction and said, okay, we have to find money ourselves. And we worked through with the Nature's Conservancy and at the time the Arizona Water Institute and developed a work plan for some work to identify issues of riparian habitat on the river. Then we worked with the Walton Family Foundation and United States Geological Survey on a study that we're doing now to eventually get it so that we have a stress test of the system through the newly produced regional groundwater flow model that USGS has produced. The Water Advisory Committee, which is all the cities and towns and county within the Verde, Yavapai County area of the Verde Basin, worked in conjunction with the USGS to come up with this groundwater flow model. Now, all of our cities and towns in active management areas, which is a term used in Arizona for areas that were of concern back in 1982, Prescott's one of those active management areas,
AMAs,
Phoenix, right. Tucson, Santa Cruz, and these areas all have groundwater flow models. And other areas of the United States and throughout the world, there's groundwater flow models.
Makes sense.
And these are computerized models taken from all the data that's been identified for a given basin and put into a computer model with based on these sectors that make up whether it's a square mile or a half square mile or whatever throughout the entire basin. And they are then, you feed into the model what you want to know. So when you go to Phoenix and want to manage water down in Phoenix or deal with a project down in Phoenix, it gets inputted into the computer and says, is there enough water for this for 100 years? Up here, what we have until this groundwater flow model came along was, well, if we don't have any computer model to do it didn't. Mm-hmm. And so we guessed if there was going to be enough water for the next 100 years. And that's really not a good way to run your operation. Mm-hmm. And there's some discrepancy of people saying, well, this should be in the model and this shouldn't be in the model. But all these models, in 1982, when they started to develop the Phoenix model, there were tremendous amount of questions. And then when they went from phase 1 to phase 2 in development of the model, but they were using the model all along.
Are we using that model now?
The first usage of that model is going to be by the Verde River Basin Partnership.
Okay.
We are not doing it based on population. We are doing it based on stresses to the system. So we have taken if there's no additional growth, no additional stress to this system, what will happen 50 years out, 100 years out? If there's 5% or not 5%, 0.5% of additional stress on the system over that time. So it's eventually
stress being growth.
Well, stress being a number of factors.
Okay.
But water usage is one of those. We can't predict growth as well as we can predict probably the stresses on the system. Okay. What's going to stress this system? So you're going to move out that 50 and 100 years, and I'd be able to identify what that additional stress on the system is going to be over that period of time. And then we said, okay, to be fair, let's say that we come up with some great conservation measures. We identify augmentation as a potential way of dealing with things, that we actually stress the system less. So we're going to come up with a scenario that identifies less stress on the system to show people that, through conservation, through appropriate management and things like that, we don't have to definitely go in the way that we're going to overstress the system, which, by the way, we're doing in many locations right now.
Okay.
So we need to allow the citizens to be able to understand how this system will work over time. And that's one of the big issues that is going to come up in September. The USGS is going to release that report that the Walton Family Foundation, the United States Geological Survey, and we worked with the USGS. Walton Family Foundation supplied $250,000 for their part of the study as far as funding. We will be able to develop this stress model and bring it to the public.
Okay, so stress model in September or months after September?
September.
September it'll be available.
Yeah, we've been working on this for a year and a half.
All right, well, we have to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the educational efforts that you guys are going to be trying to do.
That'll be great.
And we'll be helping out with.
Yeah.
So stick around. Tom O'Halloran in the studio today, chairman of the Verde River Basin Partnership. I'm Paul David. This is County-Wide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Here in northern Arizona and throughout Yavapai County, people count on Orkin Pest Control. With over 100 years of combined experience, nobody knows how to protect your home or your business from harmful or annoying pests like the Orkin Man. To start service, contact your Northern Arizona Orkin Pest Control. In the Verde Valley, call 567-5100 or Orkin Pest Control in the Prescott area at 775-8772.
Hi, I'm Steve Scourgy with Yavapai Silent Witness. Marcel Gonzalez was murdered on this spot almost 15 years ago, back in March of 1997. We know that there is somebody out there who knows what happened in the alley that night. Yavapai Silent Witness is offering an $11,000 cash reward for information that leads to the arrest of Marcel's killer. For Yavapai Silent Witness, I'm Steve Scourgy.
The pain will not control us. It will never break us, define us, or keep us still. Because arthritis can't beat us if we beat it first. In the fight against arthritis, you need a weapon. What's yours? Visit the Arthritis Foundation at fightarthritispain.org.
Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. Go to discovertheforest.org.
Welcome back to Countywide. I'm Paul David. Good to have you in studio with us today. Tom O'Halloran with the Verde River Basin Partnership in studio. You guys have developed a plan, and you approached this with me a couple weeks ago, and we thought, okay, well, let's do it. We'll get water in the forefront of people's minds again, because like I said, we do become kind of complacent with it. You drive over it, you see it flowing every day, and I've even mentioned to you and several people that is, as far as a river goes, it's so small. You know, back when I was a child in Minnesota, I remember Mississippi River, and it was, you know, huge, and this seems tiny. But anyways, it's there, it's flowing, and it's in Arizona, which is a miracle in itself.
It's a river in a desert.
It's a river in a desert.
It's an endangered species to begin with. Mm-hmm. And in order to preserve it and make sure it's there and valued by everybody, and understand that value, there's a reason to value it, whether it's economics, whether it's quality of life, whether it's if you're a hunter, to make sure that the wildlife are out there, if you're a birding enthusiast, to understand that there's 270 different species of birds that are in this basin, and that many of those birds use it as a migratory pathway during different seasons of the year. The importance of this river and its tributaries to wildlife, to our survival as cities and towns, the cost of our water is tremendous. If that river goes away, that means our aquifers are being impacted tremendously and will not sustain themselves.
Do you feel like the water awareness that's been going on since this all began over the last 10 years, I think people more or less look at water more now as gold? That water is gold.
I think
worth more than gold.
I think when a crisis comes up, they do. But the everyday understanding of it is, as long as it comes out of my tap, I'm fine. And you know, I've as you know, I've been involved with water for a long time. I've chaired the Natural Resource Committee down at the House of Representatives, and I've probably given 1,000 speeches on water throughout the western United States. And one of the things that always intrigues me is when I give them around here a lot, I see the same audience. 70% of the audience I'm talking to is the same audience.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to do that too, because we do want to reach the other part of the audience.
We have to reach the other part.
Everybody.
You know, when your child sits across the table from you, and you look at that child and say, I hope that they can have the quality of life that I have, the river flowing, the ability to use the river, whether it's for fishing or entertainment or understand the wildlife. And let's have it for that child and their children. That's not a given. That's something we have to work towards. That's something that you have to say, that is part of the value system of my life, to be able to maintain the flow in that river and the tributaries. Because we have a unique asset here that people don't have in the Southwest and throughout the world necessarily in these high desert environments. Mm-hmm. It is a unique asset that we have, and we should understand it as that unique asset.
So you guys have discussed a plan. You've come up with an idea.
We have, and we've gone out there, and the Walton Family Foundation gave us a grant of almost $100,000 for a 15-month period. We had started earlier than that to say we need to educate the entire public, not just these groups that we've been coming out to see. And we went out and sought that grant. And we're doing it through a number of ways. One of the first things we've done is through the Verde River Guiding Principles. Okay. And it gives a little bit of a history of what this area is about, from the Native American times and their reliance on the river to today, and who relies on that river today, including all the wildlife that we talked about, but including the economic realities of our system. And then on the back it has 10 principles. And these principles are fairly easy to understand, you know.
Give me a couple.
One of them is that groundwater and surface water are connected.
Okay,
you know,
makes sense.
You know, but when we have presentations, people don't necessarily understand that.
Okay.
That when there's a well that starts pumping water, that first well starts to upset the balance of how that river and groundwater worked historically.
Okay.
As you add wells and more wells, if your recharge level, which is the amount of water that gets into our aquifer based on precipitation, if our recharge level is not keeping up with our amount of water that we're taking out of the ground, then we are going to have and do have an impact on how much water gets into the river through the springs that the underground aquifer supplies water to.
All right.
And so that is one of the things that we really need to understand, that it's not just water flows down the river. It comes from somewhere. It comes from groundwater, and it comes out in the form of springs. And like in the Cottonwood area here, Haskell Springs used to flow water all year long. Mm-hmm. There's no water coming out of Haskell Springs anymore.
Okay.
And that's because of groundwater pumping. At Del Rio Springs up in the Chino Valley area, that flow still flows year round, but its flow is going to be gone, according to ADWR, by 2025 because of groundwater pumping. So these are some of the things we have to start to understand about the resource. We are using up something that is a primary resource to us. And the cost of doing that, to augment water, to bring water in from somewhere else that I don't know where you'd bring it in through. People just say the Colorado River.
It's a long ways away.
Well, it's billions of dollars away.
Sure.
Forget about the miles. It's billions of dollars away, and you don't even know if that water is going to be available to you when you want to go after it.
Has anyone looked at the Verde River and said, okay, like you mentioned the Del Rio Spring. Mm-hmm. Has anyone looked at the Verde River and said this will be dry by such and such a year? Has that ever been done?
No.
Looked at?
I don't think you can project that far out, but that goes to the groundwater modeling process that we talked about earlier.
Okay.
We can start to project now.
Okay.
Now, can we project out 50, 100 years? Yeah. Can we project out when it goes dry? I don't think so. But it's like the human body. You can sit there for 40 years of your life. I'm in great health. But something's been going on inside you that is going to all of a sudden rear its ugly head, whether it's the heart or cancer or something else like that. And you go, oh my God, could I have done something about this? And in many cases you could have. If it's the heart, you could have been exercising and eating properly and
Sure.
things like that. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden the doctor says to you, well, here's what's happening to you inside. We've just found this out. We could have found it out earlier if you had gone to the doctor on a regular basis and followed their directions, but you didn't. And so the doctor has two choices. You either have to completely change how you live, which is what you would have to do for the river at that time at a tremendous cost, or you're going to die. We can't help you. And which is the case with rivers also. You can only, that water comes out of that ground, and at some point in time, it stops coming out.
Sure.
And when it stops coming out, to get it to come out again, because all the pumping is going on still.
Yeah, it's too late then.
It's too late.
We'll have to take a break.
Okay.
Tom O'Halloran with the Verde River Basin Partnership in studio today. I'm Paul David. This is County-Wide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Here in northern Arizona and throughout Yavapai County, people count on Orkin Pest Control. With over 100 years of combined experience, nobody knows how to protect your home or your business from harmful or annoying pests like the Orkin Man. To start service, contact your northern Arizona Orkin Pest Control. In the Verde Valley, call 567 5100 or Orkin Pest Control in the Prescott area at 775-8772.
About the dangers of prescription drug abuse. The partnership at drugfree.org.
Hi, I'm Steve Scourgy with Yavapai Silent Witness. Marcel Gonzalez was murdered on this spot almost 15 years ago, back in March of 1997. We know that there is somebody out there who knows what happened in the alley that night. Yavapai Silent Witness is offering an $11,000 cash reward for information that leads to the arrest of Marcel's killer. For Yavapai Silent Witness, I'm Steve Scourgy.
Every year, 2 million kids play doctor by taking pills not prescribed to them. Talk to your kids about the dangers of prescription drug abuse. The partnership at drugfree.org.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got a couple minutes left in the program. We've talked just a little bit with you, Tom, about some of the information that's available, but people can find it at vrbp.org, and that's kind of a temporary website right now.
It is. It's a temporary one. We're working on the permanent website, but the website gives you information and stuff, and we appreciate if people go to vrbp.org. And if they want to ask us a question about water, you go to info@vrbp.org, and we'll get that email, and we'll get back to you on and answer your question. You know, that's an important thing for people to have a resource to go to get questions answered on something this important. And you had mentioned earlier about what we're doing, you know, the Verde River guiding principles. And one of those principles I wanted, water makes Earth habitable. Fresh water, a finite resource, is essential for all life on land. You have to have it.
Yeah.
We have to have it. The other thing we're doing is two things. The Verde River Basin water resource notes.
Okay.
These are going to be coming out every month or so, and it's very light reading. We've made it so people can understand it. It's not a bunch of it's not a bunch of science. You read it, right? And it's just not a bunch of science. It really takes a bunch of science and puts it into layman's terms for people to understand at the normal conversational level and not the scientific level. And I think the first one we put out was the Verde River, a desert treasure at risk. And it doesn't say it's going to go away right away. It says we have to do something and have to understand the resource. And then something very similar to this is going to come out, and it's called the Water Resource Primer. Primer. And that's written in more scientific language. So if you look at this, you'll say, okay, I want to know a little bit more. You'll be able to go to the primer, which will eventually be a book. And what's unique about these articles and things are they're centric to the Verde. We have written the primer, which will be about 100 pages or so when it's done, but chaptered off and handed out in chapters, purposely so that people can associate what they're reading with where they live, versus, well, this is how aquifer works. Well, it might be an aquifer in Podunk, Iowa.
But this is
nothing against Iowa.
This is our back door.
But this is our back door, and we should know how it works in relationship to our back door and our front yard and how it affects our life.
Okay, and we're going to do stories with you on this monthly when this comes up.
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
have you
excited
back in
that.
a few months to do another one of these, because this kind of kickstarts it, and we'll just go from there and see what happens.
Right, and we've been lucky, and we have there's blogs out there. We're going to be putting much more information even than this out eventually. We're just getting this geared up, but again, it's a resource for the people out there. VRBP.org, and if you have a question, info@vrbp.org.
All right, Tom O'Halloran, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you again real soon. I'm Paul David. That's today's Countywide. We'll talk to you again next time.